90% of people feel safest when they're at home. Doors locked, curtains drawn, chilled and cozy, everything where it should be. What's unsettling is that's where most paranormal encounters are reported. Not out there, but here, where you should feel safe. Hey, welcome to ASMRk. I hope you are doing well as always. Today's video is another compilation of scary stories from Reddit. All will be whispered. One of the stories is easily one of the most creepiest I've ever read. Let's get straight to them. I hope you enjoy. This happened 6 weeks ago. I still don't know what to do with it. I've tried telling a few people, but it comes out sounding like a dream or a delusion. I get that, but I was awake and it happened. For context, I'm a night security guard for a private school campus in Connecticut. It's not as serious as it sounds. The school is spread across several small buildings, none more than 2 stories. I have a little office with camera feeds and a radio. My job is mostly to check the doors are locked and lights are off. I walk the grounds twice per night, once around 10:30 p.m. and then again at 2 a.m. What happened started on a Monday. The night itself was uneventful. No rain, no wind, no power outages. It was quiet. Too quiet maybe, now that I think back. At exactly 2:04 a.m, I left the admin building to start my second sweep. Everything was normal until I got near the old faculty house on the east side. It's a building they don't use anymore, partially boarded up. They were supposed to renovate it last year, but got tied up in some historical preservation committee. Anyway, as I passed by, I saw a light flick on in one of the upstairs rooms. I stopped. The power's supposed to be cut in that building. No one uses it. I remember standing there thinking maybe it was a trick of reflection, or maybe a street light glinting off a window. But then, a figure moved behind the glass. A woman, pale, dark hair, standing far back from the window. She wasn't doing anything, just facing the glass. Not even directly, more like slightly turned, like she was watching me from the corner of her eye. I called it in over the radio. I wasn't even sure what I was reporting. I didn't say ghost or intruder. I just said I saw movement in the faculty house. Dispatch told me no one was scheduled on site. They asked if I needed backup. I said no. And that was probably my first mistake. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The place was full of that dry, quiet smell buildings get. The floor creaked under my boots. My flashlight was the only light source. The stairwell on the second floor was just to the right. I climbed slowly, sweeping the beam ahead of me. I could feel it. Someone was up there. You know that sensation when your skin just knows it isn't alone. I reached the top and turned the corner. Nothing. All the doors to the rooms were shut, except for the one at the far end. It was cracked open. I made my way to it, every board underfoot complaining quietly. The room beyond the door was completely empty. No furniture, no curtains, just a thick layer of dust. But here's the thing, there were 2 clean footprints right in the middle of the floor. Not made by shoes, bare feet, small, like a woman's. And they weren't pointing toward the window. They were pointing toward the door entire upstairs and found nothing else. No signs of forced entry, no graffiti, no movement. It was like she'd never been there. But when I stepped back outside, the air had changed. I can't explain it. Not the temperature or the smell, just the feeling. That kind of low electrical tension, like the moment before a lightning strike. I walked the rest of the campus, not thinking much of it. Maybe I convinced myself I imagined her. But when I returned to the security office and checked the exterior cameras, something made my throat tighten. Every building feed looked normal, except the one for the admin building, the one I'd just left. At 2:29 AM, the feed showed me returning to the office, and 10 seconds after I walked in, a woman stepped into frame at the edge of the screen, just enough to catch her shoulder. She stood there, still, not walking, not turning, just waiting, watching the door. The timestamp showed she stayed for 14 minutes. And the worst part, she never made a sound. Not a footfall, not a breath, nothing. The next time, I almost didn't come in. But curiosity won, or maybe pride. I told myself maybe it was a prank. Maybe someone dressed up to mess with me. But deep down, I didn't believe that. The night passed quietly until 2:11 AM. I was doing my sweep, this time avoiding the faculty house entirely. As I walked between the library and the science building, I caught something in the corner of my eye, a quick movement behind a tree. When I turned, nothing was there. I froze, waited. Then from behind me, about 10 feet away, I heard my own name, whispered, barely audible. Jason. There was no one around. I scanned every camera feed for the rest of the night. Nothing showed, but I kept thinking about the whisper. It didn't sound threatening. It sounded close, familiar, like someone I used to know. 3 nights ago, I stayed up at home, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it all. Around 3:30 AM, I went to brush my teeth before bed. When I opened the bathroom door, the mirror was fogged up completely. No steam, no hot water had been run. The sink was dry. I stood there staring at it, my brain trying to catch up, trying to form logic around something that didn't belong. And then, in the mirror, I saw movement behind me. I turned. No one. When I looked back, the mirror had cleared on its own, bone dry. But something had been behind me. I swear to you it had. I've since quit the job and haven't returned to the school. I disconnected the house cameras. I don't answer calls after dark, but I still hear things. Sometimes when I'm laying in bed, there's a soft creak from the hallway, the sound of slow, deliberate weight on wood. But when I check, nothing's there. No footprints, no woman, no explanation, just silence, and that feeling like I'm never really alone anymore. I'm not the kind of person who jumps at ghosts when weird stuff happens. I've always believed that if something feels off, it's probably explainable. Faulty wiring, creaky pipes, sleep deprivation, that sort of thing. But what happened during the fall of 2019 doesn't sit right with me, and I've never been able to explain it away. This happened in an older building in Baltimore, just east of Mount Vernon. It wasn't a sketchy place, just old. The layout was narrow and vertical, 3 floors, 5 units total. I rented the second floor, not much to it. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, all hardwood. The kind of place that always feels cold, even in the summer. these long wooden stairs that ran up the middle of the building, the kind where you hear every footstep, every door creak. When I first moved in, the landlord casually mentioned the building had been a boarding house back in the 1930s. Nothing major, he said. Just don't be surprised if the plumbing makes weird sounds. It started after I came back from visiting my parents over Labour Day weekend. I'd left the apartment empty for 4 days. When I returned, everything looked exactly the same. Keys where I'd left them, fridge humming, no break-ins. But something was off. I couldn't name it. Just this low-level discomfort in my stomach, like I was being watched, especially on the staircase. I told myself it was just being away. You forget your home's little quirks after a few days. But that night, whilst I was brushing my teeth, I heard soft, deliberate footsteps in the stairwell outside my apartment. I paused, toothbrush in mid-air. The steps stopped right outside my door. Then nothing. I leaned toward the hallway, holding my breath. No voices, no knock, no movement. I cracked the door open, thinking maybe someone had gotten lost, or maybe the neighbour upstairs was moving furniture. But the stairwell was empty. It kept happening every other night around 10:30 or so. I'd hear those measured footsteps coming up the stairs, always slow, always ending at my landing, never followed by anything else. One night I decided to look through the peephole. There was no one there. Another night I left the door slightly cracked, not all the way open, just enough to see the hallway light. Sure enough, at 10:32 the footsteps came, but when I looked out, nothing. No one visible. I mean, no shadow, no shift in the air, no sound retreating, just silence. I closed the door, locked it, and felt my heartbeat slam in my chest. The next part still messes with me. I was homesick one Wednesday, just some stomach bug thing. Around noon, I was half awake on the couch when I heard the stairs creak. Different this time. It was midday, and the steps were lighter, quicker, like a child's. I sat up slowly. Then I saw her. A girl, maybe 9 or 10 years old, standing at the top of the stairwell, just past my apartment door. She was pale, with long, dark hair, and this weird, faded yellow dress, the kind that looks like it belongs in a school portrait from the 1960s. She wasn't doing anything, just standing there, like she didn't know where to go. I thought maybe someone's niece had gotten lost, or a neighbour had let their kid wander. But when I opened the door and stepped into the hall, she was gone. I called out, "Hey, are you okay?" Nothing. I walked all the way up to the 3rd floor, knocked on doors. No one had visitors, and the upstairs tenant, a guy named Carl, told me he'd just gotten home and hadn't seen anyone come in. After that, the air in the apartment changed, but it started to feel like something was there, not watching, waiting. My cat, who normally slept in the bedroom, started refusing to go down the hallway. She'd sit at the end near the living room and stare at the door. Every time the footsteps came, she'd flatten her ears and bolt under the couch. One night, I left my phone recording audio near the door just to prove to myself that I wasn't imagining it. What I got still gives me chills. At 10:32, you can hear the faint creak of the bottom stair, then each step up, and then a soft giggle, high-pitched, breathless, a child's voice, then nothing. I finally confronted the landlord. I asked some kind of caretaker's quarters or a storage room, but when the workers opened it, they found a small twin bed, some stacked books, and a child's shoe tucked neatly under the frame. There was no record of a family living there, no explanation. They sealed the room back up. That was it for me. I left the apartment a week later. I didn't tell the next tenant. I probably should have, but I wanted it out of my head. I still hear the sound of those steps sometimes, especially in quiet places. Even now, I find myself watching staircases. Hey, this is just a quick message. Sorry to interrupt the stories. If you're enjoying the video today, please do leave a like and consider subscribing. There'll be 2 new videos every week, all containing scary stories and all whispered. Anyway, let's get back to the stories tonight. I needed a place to stay fast. My lease ended unexpectedly when my roommate bolted with no notice. Landlord just took my check and pointed at a vacancy sign. I started house sitting for a small property management company. They asked me to live in an empty 3-bedroom house on the edge of town in exchange for keeping the place clean and reporting any issues. Fair deal. Free lodging, no rent, some utility coverage. The house was a mid-90s ranch with a big 2-car garage. My main instruction: you're here mostly in case of smoke alarms or leaky pipes. We'll pop by once every few days. Perfect for my freelance work and loose schedule. The first few days were easy. I settled in, set up my remote office in the bright living room, and relaxed into the routine. Roast coffee, quiet typing, nightly bike rides. Everything felt normal until night 5. I was in the master bathroom, brushing my teeth at 11 p.m. My phone buzzed with a text notification. The message was from the contractor, not the company. It said, "Garage alert. Could you check it?" Confused, hadn't authorised garage access. I put down the toothbrush and grabbed my socks, heading down the short hallway to the garage door inside the house. The garage smelled like engine oil and fresh rubber, nothing strange. But the motion sensor light hanging from the ceiling was on, and the main light near the stairwell flickered. Probably a trip sensor, I thought. I walked through, checked the side door, locked properly. No footprints on the floor or bike tracks. I flicked the light off and texted back. All good, didn't see anyone. The next morning, I got a response. It tripped again. Could you check every midnight? I sighed, not joking around. I replied yes, then decided to actually sit and wait that night. At 11:45 p.m, I logged off work and grabbed my bike. I climbed down into the cool garage. The motion light clicked as I stepped in. I locked the inside door and mounted the bike. I circled slowly, inspecting. Exhaust pipes cold, tools arranged neatly along the wall. No signs of someone messing around. Ceiling mounted cameras showed no movement. I tapped the sensor light with my palm. It didn't go off. Battery powered. At midnight, nothing happened. At 12:15 a.m. Clang. I heard the rear door hinge squeak from inside the house, as if someone opened the door from the inside of the garage. My heart leapt. I didn't expect anyone else there. I charged back into the house. Every deadbolt and latch was secure. I called the contractor. Someone's opening the door inside. That's not possible. Only the sensors hooked to us. He sounded irritated, like I was pranking him. 2 nights later, I set up a small cam facing the garage door inside. My plan, catch anomalies. At 12:02 a.m, I saw it. The image froze for half a second. When it resumed, the door still closed. I paused the recording. Then I noticed something else. From outside, a second click. The small latch above the main lock, not from the inside. Did someone access the garage from the outside? There were no windows, only a tiny crawl door under the back deck. The crawl door had been locked every night. I double-checked before I left. I texted the contractor again. The latch is clicking at midnight is from outside access. His reply was immediate. No one should have access. Call me if you hear more. I couldn't sleep. I left the camera recording and didn't go to bed at all. Exactly at 12:03 a.m, I heard slow footsteps on the concrete driveway outside, the soft thud of boots. Through the garage door window, I saw a figure in dark clothing standing maybe 10 feet away, facing me, motionless. I locked the inside garage door immediately. Suddenly, they walked into the lawn, not toward the crawl door. The camera recorded, and I pressed zoom. The head tilted slightly, just a little, as they stared in my direction. They didn't blink. I fled into the house and locked both entries. I called the contractor. I called the cops. No answers. Couldn't explain the footage. They said they'd send someone by in a few days. The next morning, I reviewed the footage and discovered something chill in the reflection in the window. Behind my bike ladder stood another silhouetted figure. Taller, unbending, but only a shadow behind the upright ladder frame. I never saw them there during the night. That afternoon, I walked into the garage to put tools away and nearly lost my balance. The crawl door under the deck was ajar, just enough to slip a hand inside, like someone had tested it. The lock guard wasn't slipped all the way. I climbed down, checked inside the crawl space. Nothing but dust and leaves. And I swear, I found a small footprint, muddy, size 12, right inside, with the heel slightly dragged, as if the person turned. No other footprints. I snapped photos and texted the company. Someone's been in that crawl space. I found a muddy footprint. No response. The final night, I was ready. I set my phone's camera on a tripod against the crawl door, looking toward the driveway. I grabbed a flashlight and held it in front. At 11:59, nothing. At 12:10, footsteps. I glared through the window. 2 figures walking across the driveway were visible now. One approaching the main garage door, the other stopping halfway, staring through the bright yellow light. I clicked record on my phone. The second figure moved close to the crawl space door. They pressed their face to the small window hole and whispered something I couldn't make out, broken and hoarse. Eyes looked right at me. I froze, then both backed away along the hedge, heads swiveling as as if scanning. They disappeared into the dark yard opposite my building. They did not walk back toward the street. They vanished into thin air behind the garage. I lost my nerve. I left instantly. I didn't record the rest. I never stayed another night. I packed my laptop and clothes and moved to a friend's place. I told the company I couldn't continue. They were dismissive but didn't push. I've never gone back. The house is still occupied by them. I posted a note on Nextdoor warning about the strange access. The cries weren't there, but I watched the listing age without updates. Sometimes I drive past at night. The driveway light goes on briefly, maybe testing sensors. I look at the closed garage, and occasionally, in the darkness, I think I see a shadow shift past the windows, or hear a voice in the crawl space whispering. I still sleep with the locks a little tighter now. I'm considering renting surveillance gear for my car. If I ever come across that recording again, I swear I'll post it. This might get buried, but I need to write it out. Even if no one believes me, I just want it out of my head. I live alone. No roommates, no pets. My place is a modest one-bedroom in northern Michigan. Pretty quiet, surrounded by woods and long stretches of road, where you can drive for miles and not see another house. I work from home, IT troubleshooting, so I spend a lot of time inside, on calls, with headphones on. I like the isolation, or I did. This started about 2 months ago, gradually, quietly, almost like my brain let it slip in through the cracks without me noticing. I was in the kitchen heating up soup when I heard something faint from the hallway. My first instinct was that it came from an open window, but when I turned off the burner and really listened, it sounded like a voice. My voice. Whispering. I don't mean it sounded similar to me. I mean I heard myself saying something I didn't say. I stepped into the hallway, but it was empty. Bedroom to the left, bathroom door open. Nothing unusual. I checked outside just in case, but there was no one around. Trees, gravel, nothing but the wind. I figured it was maybe my own voice echoing off something, maybe a podcast left running, something explainable, but it didn't stop. Over the next few weeks, I kept catching these little bits of speech from rooms I wasn't in, only ever when I was alone. Always brief, just a phrase, a fragment of thought, and always in my own voice. I started jotting them down in a notebook. I don't know why, it just felt off, like my brain needed proof that this was happening. Don't go in there, he's looking right at you. It's already inside. Sometimes I'd hear a full sentence just as I crossed the threshold into another room. But when I got there, silence. One night, I walked into the bathroom and I heard, clear as day, he's finally starting to notice. That one stopped me cold. I set up an old baby monitor from the closet. I had it left over from a time my sister visited with her kid. I put one unit in the bedroom, the other next to me in the living room. Basic audio, nothing fancy. The first 2 nights, nothing. But on the third night, at around 1:17 AM, I heard it over the monitor. My voice, but the rhythm was off, stilted, like someone was trying to imitate how I speak, but missing the natural bass in. It said, I don't think he knows, we're still awake. I was frozen on the couch. I didn't get up, didn't check the bedroom. staring at the monitor until sunrise. I started noticing little things. I'd walk into the kitchen and the faucet would be dripping, just barely. I was sure I hadn't used it. Other times, my phone would be in a different spot on the counter than I remember leaving it. I'd come back from a walk and find the bedroom door closed, when I always left it open. At first, I wondered if I was sleepwalking, but then something happened that made me realise it was worse than that. I finally set up an old security camera in the hallway facing the bedroom door. Didn't want motion alerts. I just let it record all night, looped to a drive. After 3 nights of nothing, I sat down to review a few segments while eating breakfast. Around 3:12 a.m, the bedroom door opened. I stepped out. Except I didn't. I was asleep, in bed. The figure, me, walked halfway down the hall and then just stood there, still, for over 4 minutes. No twitch, no breath, just standing. Then he turned and walked back into the bedroom. I scrubbed through the next few hours of footage. Nothing. I was still in bed the whole time. Didn't move once. The voices have changed. They're not just echoing phrases anymore. They're having conversations, in my voice, from different rooms. A few nights ago, I sat on the kitchen floor in the dark and just listened. From the bedroom, he thinks this is still his house. From the hallway, let him keep thinking that. And then, laughter. My laugh. But it sounded wrong. Like something that knew what laughing was supposed to sound like, but hadn't actually felt it before. I don't know what's going on anymore. I haven't slept in 2 nights. I unplugged the cameras. I stopped writing things down. I'm not even sure this post will make sense when I read it back. This morning, I woke up on the couch with muddy footprints leading in from the back door. The lock was still bolted from the inside. I checked the footage one last time before deleting everything. Around 2:48 a.m, the camera in the hallway flickered, then picked back up. There was 2 of me. One just stood there, head tilted. The other stepped toward the door.